G'day guys, it's Calvin from the Cartoon Company in New Zealand. Done a big explanation on cooling systems, how they work, where they work, why we want to get temperature out of them. And I hope you guys have watched that. If you haven't, go check it out. Then come back and watch this one. Let's go through the practical of the cooling system. This is the hot side. Hot water, I'm going to call it water, comes through here. Travels through this pipe to our heat exchanger, which would normally be a radiator in the front. So I need you to use your imagination. Cold water is returned to the engine via this tube. This is the inlet to the engine where the thermostat is found. This is a bypass circuit. Bypass. There is a bleeder on top. Bypass circuit in the back here. Thermostat is blocking flow. My thermostat is closed. We have a water pump. Hopefully not as noisy as this one. Driven by the cam belt. Okay. It is splashing some water around. The water pump. Pushing water into the block. So it's traveling, pushing cold water into the block. It's going along the side and it can come up to the top. Now just a note, if you've got your oil cooler down here, comes off here, so it's partially warmed water coming through and it flows from the block, up, goes into side of here. This is cold. So it goes through the oil cooler, dropping, pulling temperature, going into there. The coolant then travels around your bores. Of course, there's hot stuff happening in here. Hot stuff in there, around there. And it can flow up into the cylinder head. Can't flow up here. There are metered holes in the head gasket to control the flow into the cylinder head. And you'll notice the bigger holes are at the back. So at the back of the block, we want the water to travel through that block, come up. Most of it's coming up at the back of the cylinder head. You then have this accessory here. I've blanked mine off, but there is hot water going to the heater. Once it's gone through the heater, which is a heat exchanger, it's a radiator, cooled water is going through this pipe to the back of the water pump. Cold. The water then travels through the head. It's bloody an ECU in the way. Through the cylinder head to this pipe here, back out to the heat exchanger, radiator, to have the heat removed from it before it's returned back cooled, ready to do its job again. This is the temp sensor for the ECU, and that one which would be there is for the dash. This setup is like a VVTI. I threw the dash sensor away, it only goes to the ECU. On the VVTI, just the one for the ECU, unless it's a crown. Same as 3UZ, done via the ECU CAN bus. You'll notice it's new, been replaced. If this engine had pipes through the throttle body, it would be here, it would flow up, hot, being cooled by the throttle body. We've got air going through there, so you've got air that's keeping this cool. So we're warming this up and cooling the water off. Dropping it through here into the idle speed control unit and back into cold. If you take your thermostat out without other modifications, you're in for trouble. Bad idea. Do not do it. So we've got some flow patterns on the engine. Let's put it into a real life situation. Let's run this engine and check some temperatures. We're going to be watching oil pressure. I've got the ECU logging, so we can grab some logs as well and watch the different temperatures in the engine. Unfortunately, I didn't have logs of the oil temp. It's 22 degrees in here. 23.5 there. 23.5. 23.5. 24 at the throttle body. It's telling us 22 degrees. Wonder if we've got an air temp on the next one. Air temp, water temp, oil pressure. 27, 22. It's a little bit out, isn't it? And that can be a bit of a difference in sensors. 5 degrees, not too big a deal at the moment. This is a jet boat. So I can feed it constant water. Going to do that. Let's monitor some temps with my heat gun while it warms up. Okay. The timer is going. Turn the key on. And our engine is running. Once the water's gone through the heat exchanger, it heads down and exits through the exhaust manifolds. So I can touch these and they're 23, 24 degrees. So our top pipe at this point has already climbed to 31 degrees as the water is going through here. 35 degrees going through here. There is no coolant. We're still at 23 out the top hose. I can hold this easily. What you'll have here, this is rapidly warming up through that bypass circuit. 38 degrees. Our dash is telling us 42, so it's pretty close. This out here is blocked. Thermostat is still closed, but the housing is starting to warm up. 42, 41.5, 42.8. Let's look what the side of the block is at. $31 in the block there. 36 at the back of the block. 34 through the head. Coming through the head, 40. 45. So we're actually seeing the head. It's cooler at the back than at the front. Oil is at 25 degrees. Oil pressure is at 80 psi. Okay, we're coming up to 4 minutes of running. We're at 46 degrees in the crossover. Oh, I think it might be a bit shiny because we're closer to 50 degrees. Bypass is at 50 degrees. Thermostat housing, 49. Thermostat is still closed. There's no water going out the top hose. We're getting a little bit of temperature creep, 25 degrees. That side is at 24 degrees. In this case, the exhaust manifolds are 24 degrees still. So we're over 5 minutes of running. Oil's now at 30 degrees down the side of the block. 44. 46 at the back. 56 at the back of the head. Back crossover. Around about 48 degrees. You'll notice I also put my gumboots on. They're steel caps. I really don't want an engine falling on my feet. And jandals, flip-flops, don't cut it. Right, nearly 7 minutes. $62 degrees in that front crossover. Water's still flowing through the bypass. 63 into the thermostat housing. This top hose, just through convection currents, 26 there. And the bottom hose, 25 degrees. So we've got just a little bit of convection current happening. Of course, there is the poppet, and just natural convection currents happening in the engine. I'm struggling to touch this here now. 67 degrees. Just over 8 minutes. Looking at the oil. Oil's now at 40 degrees. Oil pressure at idle is dropped off to 60. See on here the water temp's actually reading 76. With my heat gun I'm reading 70 degrees down by the temp sensor, but that's of course on the outside of the aluminium. Starting to feel some heat coming through that top hose. Climbing to 26 degrees. This hose is noticeably cold, and this one's got a little bit of temp in it. And it's warmer here than it is down here. $74 degrees, so we're getting close. This is 10 minutes of running. Let's have a look down the side of that block. So the oil's now about 50 degrees. Front of the block, 71 degrees. 73 degrees just above the oil drain. 72 at the back. 71 degrees. So we're starting to heat that whole block up, that big lump of aluminium. Oil's at 51. Right, we're 12 minutes in. The dash is telling me 84. And I'm at 77 degrees right there. 77. That thermostat, I can't touch that housing anymore. Oh, I'm gonna need some petrol. Right, I'm starting to feel some temp going down this tube here. You'll notice we've got 63 degrees. We're 14 minutes in. On the outside of the aluminium, I'm measuring 74. My dash, which is in the water, is measuring 84. You'll also notice the oil pressure. It's dropped into the low 40s. Outside of the thermostat housing, I now have 59 degrees. So I think, oh, that's still cold. That's climbed to 27. I think you'll find right at this moment, because we've got the hot water going down to the heat exchanger, that thermostat's just starting to open. We'll actually notice we've actually got a temperature drop. It's actually dropped to 71 degrees as it's letting the water in from the heat exchanger. Back there we've got 76 degrees. 75 in the crossover. Gauge is showing 84. At this point our oil is up to 58 degrees. Going down this top pipe. 67. So this pipe itself is actually offering some cooling, because at the back it's at 61. I've definitely got some flow through here because I can't touch it nicely in here now. About 57 degrees there. .53 in the middle, 40 at the end. This gives you an example. That's hot. I can just handle there. I can still handle it there. So this heat exchanger is quite efficient. We're at 76 degrees. Thermostat housing is sitting at 70. Oil steadily climbing. And it's sitting pretty much 75. 75. 75. Oil pressure is about 40. Water temp is sitting a stable 85 degrees. But our oil temp is steadily climbing. 62. At this point, the cooling system, the water cooling system is up to temp. But the oil's still coming up to temperature. It hasn't got all the way. And we've got relatively stable temps through the engine. More temp is going to give some better combustion to a point. Let's see what happens when I rev it to both the oil pressure and the water temp. Notice after the run, the oil pressure has come back to idle quite a bit lower. It's now been running for 22 minutes. And that last run gave us 10 degrees more oil temp. So it's still warming up. And our thermostat housing's come up a little bit, and I've actually got some heat in the bottom hose. The water returning from the heat exchange has now climbed to 41 degrees. You'll notice the oil pressure, just as that oil warms up, it is still dropping. We're about 25 minutes into this. And that's what our oil temp is at, 81 degrees. Temp gauge is reading 87, and oil pressure is actually pretty stable now, around the high 20s, low 30s. I can no longer touch this top hose. We're on our block. 77. 77. That's the alternator. The alternator's at 44 degrees. My intake tube, 33. Around the base of the injector is 72. Just a note, because this is a boat, I can still touch the exhaust manifolds. A little bit hotter under here. 33. 37 and 40. I think the biggest thing that this shows is the cooling system is trying to make the whole engine up to the same temperature. It also shows that it takes longer for the oil to get up to temperature. In a driving situation, it will happen a lot faster. We did it at idle, and it took a long time to get there. With some revs on, it will take less time, of course, and in a driving situation. I've never been a fan of really warming a car up a long way. Of course, in some environments, that is necessary because you guys are in snow and ice and sleet. So keep it in the garage, give it a bit of a warm up. With the boat, we notice a drop as soon as we start running it in the water. It drops in temp. This is a really good example because I can control the temperature going into this engine really well. I've got fixed water going in and a fixed amount. It's not altering like it's going to when this goes into the boat, because the jet unit will pump different amounts of water. It's got a standard thermostat in it at the moment. That may change as we adjust it depending on the efficiency of that cooler. And I'm actually pretty impressed. It's quite a small heat exchanger and it's doing the job. But also, remember, it takes longer for that oil or the whole engine to get right up to temperature. Just because your temperature gauge is up doesn't mean you should cane the crap out of your car. Wait a little bit longer, because it's going to take a little bit longer for that oil temp to come up. Also, running oil too cold is a bad thing as well, so you don't want to do that. It will cause damage. Often oil temp is within 10 to 15 degrees of coolant in normal vehicles. And another really important note about oil, of course, is there are parts in that engine that are going to be hotter than that 80 degrees. It's an average temp that's in the sump. Bottom of pistons, cylinder walls, that oil's taking heat away from there. Of course, it's lubricating as well, but there's going to be parts in that engine that are hotter, so good quality oils are really important. Hopefully this has been somewhat informative, especially about the bypass circuit and the way the whole engine gets up to temp. So I hope that's been helpful. We'll talk to you soon. Catch you later.